Here I am. Here I am. I'm so happy. I'm mumbling my words. Here I am live on YouTube for the first time in a long time. And oh my gosh, I see my friend Kristen. She is, let's see. Let's see. Can you hear me yet, Kristen? I see your video, but your video is, maybe I need to, oh, there we go. Haha, I figured it out.
Can you hear me though?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
excellent. Yay.
Yeah, so I guess what happens is you show up in gray first, and I have to click a little button, and then it brings you on screen and it goes to color.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Is my sound good though?
Yeah, I can hear you. I mean, uh, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I just turned you up a little bit.
Cool.
Now, are we live already? Oh, we are already live. All right
Yeah,
on.
yeah, I think going live is what allows me to bring you on, so
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
everybody.
Yes, hello to everyone on the replay. We set this for 3:30, but wanted to show up early, play, make sure everything works, make sure we can hear each other, all of that good stuff. Yeah. Well, well, this is my very special guest today, Kristen Brown, and we've done this a number of times. We started doing this over on an audio only app. At least it was an audio only back when I played on it, and it's called Wisdom, and that's how I met and discovered Kristen. And it was just one of those things where we just clicked like right away. And I'm sure we'll get into vibration and resonance and all of that. But it's just like, it was one of those things where the first time we talked, it was just like, we get each other.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And so we did a number of those because on that platform, you could invite guests up onto your stage. And so we go back and forth in each other's stages and then just stay connected. And yeah, I think this is our first. No, actually, you know what? We've done this before on another video streaming app, but now this is our first one on YouTube. So yay!
What did we do the other one? My memory doesn't serve me.
Fireside.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Which did show up on here because when I was playing on Fireside, they did have a setting that sent you to YouTube. I just didn't realize. I guess I kind of forgot that I turned that setting on. And then when I started adding a bunch more videos in this past month to YouTube, I was like, oh my gosh, all my lives from Fireside are on here, including the one with you. So we do technically already have a video together on this channel. So this is, I guess, our second one.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. I love all these streaming things. I mean, there's so much technology, I tell you, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to position this so when I'm looking at you, I'm looking forward because I was doing this. So,
Okay. Gotcha.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. A good eye line works well. Yeah. So, Kristen, how would you how would you describe yourself? I know you're, what's the term, a spiritual empowerment guide? Is that the okay?
Oh, golly. Over the years of the course of teaching, I've changed my messaging so many times as I've healed and grown and shifted. What I've landed on right now is self-love mastery and relationship healing,
Hmm,
author, speaker, and coach. And
nice.
the reason why I combine self-love mastery and relationship healing is because self-love mastery will heal your relationships.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we could begin right here. Maybe if let me go over to the chat. I guess that'll tell me if someone jumps on and starts leaving a comment or anything. So I just switched over so I could see the chat if anyone pops on. But yeah, I feel like we could get started right there with
Sure.
just exactly what you said, self-love mastery leading into relationship healing, because I mean, all relationships are mirrors, aren't they?
They are. Absolutely. They will mirror back to what we have unhealed inside of ourselves, they will mirror back to us how we are treating ourselves. As was the case with me when I finally had enough of being treated poorly, and I looked within and I was like, okay, if they're reflecting back to me, how am I being disrespectful, dishonoring, not caring? How am I taking myself for granted? How am I being unprotecting of self? And I looked at all that, and the writing was on the wall. It was very apparent to me where I had treated myself this way.
Yeah.
So when I
Yep.
started to clean that up, my energetic frequency changed. There's two things that happen. One, our energy changes, it upgrades, and we start to attract higher vibrational people to us because our vibration has changed. And the second thing is that we hold a better sense of empowerment within a relationship. So we're no longer willing to fold or to dim our light or to not say what needs to be said, those type of things, because there's no longer that fear involved, because we love ourselves so much, just like we would protect a small child or a beloved pet or an elderly loved one, someone who requires our protection. We start to organically protect ourselves that way, and we're willing to let people go that are unwilling to treat us like that. And all that combined starts to weed out people who are not going to treat us with the respect, love, and honor that we deserve, and we will start attracting people who do.
Yeah. And to me, what has taken so much courage, I love everything you just said, and to add to it, what's taken so much courage, and we're on here talking about all things woo. We're just about at the 3:30 mark, so and woo woo, you could say. And to me, that what that means is really embracing the mystical side of life. And another way of saying that for me would be the invisible side of life. And so clearly, we all, those of us that are blessed to have our vision, we open our eyes and we see this whole world that seems like it's outside of us. Like that's what we learn. Like there's this world, like I'm in this world. As a kid, I mean, I think that's what most people get. Like this is the world, like welcome to it. And then embracing the mystical side of life to me is recognizing that we also have this inside world, which clearly we feel. We know when we feel awful, we know when we feel happy. It's like we have clear distinction in terms of different moods, you might say. Like most of us are aware of like being in a mood even before like the mystical knowledge comes into play. It's like people say like, oh, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm bummed, I'm depressed, like all these different terms that reflect moods. And to me, that's the inner dimension. And the thing that really shifted everything for me was when I was led to the mystical universal truth that the inside world, that inner world, the inner dimension, feelings, thoughts, emotions, is actually what's creating the world that I see with my eyes. If this is the first time you're hearing that, you might be like, "What?" And at first, it is kind of like, "What?" But then, the more I became conscious and paid attention, and really sat with we create our reality, with our beliefs. You hear thoughts create your reality, but to me, more importantly, it's the beliefs, like what we believe about ourselves, which will tie in back to our relationship with self, which I'm sure we'll get back into that in a moment. But yeah, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about the world. So, for instance, the quality of life that we believe we're worthy of, the quality of relationships that we believe we're worthy of. I mean, looking back, I know I settled in so many relationships because I was just like, oh, I don't deserve anything. I mean, this is the best that's possible for
Right.
me. Like why would I want to shake it up and try to like, you know, see if there's something better, because then I might lose this. And as far as I'm convinced, this is the best I can get. Uh, and so like that's what really opened things up for me, is when I really began to see that, oh yeah, that the outside world is a mirror, and it's mirroring back to me what I believe about myself, what I believe about the world, what I believe is possible for me in this life, and again, what I'm worthy of. And when I really started to see how the two were absolutely connected, I mean, it changed everything, because then I feel like everything starts to open up, and all of these mysteries or confusions about life start to become more obvious, because it's like, oh wait, like, oh my gosh, like you said, when you said like letting go, when you realize that you deserve better and you decide to let certain relationships go, to me what that did in my life is it opened me up to a clean slate. And then all of a sudden, like, better relationships did come along, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this was even possible, because for so long I was stuck clinging on to what I thought was the best possibility for me. And so, just to circle all back, like woo woo, to me, it's just the mystical understanding of life. The inner world creates the outer world. The outer world serves to be a reflection. And it's not, I mean, you hear these things, like these terms, which to me, I'll let you reflect on this for yourself, Kristen. But to me, when I hear these things, like, like life is cruel and stuff like that, like to me, those don't really carry weight anymore, because I see that the mirror is only, it's actually doing me a service. As uncomfortable as sometimes the mirror can be, it's saying like, this is what you believe. And so my only real function is to show you in situations, circumstances, in your real life, your real outward life, what you believe about yourself, what you believe you're worthy of, so that you can be clear about it. And if you're clear that what you've settled for, what you've created this far, doesn't feel good, you actually can create something that feels better. And so those terms like, oh, life is unfair, life is cruel, those don't really carry weight with me anymore, because I realize that, and this is a phrase that I've really felt strongly about as of late, is don't attack the mirror, thank the mirror.
Wow, yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
So this is funny because we did not plan this, you guys. We did not plan this conversation. We are totally freeballing right now. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to show you guys something that's really funny. The very first chapter of my book is called
Let's see. It's
Relationships Are Mirrors.
yes. Yeah.
Very first chapter.
Oh my
That's what it
gosh.
is called because that's such a foundational thing for us to recognize that that's what's happening. Like when we can look into and why it was so just awe-inspiring and humbling the day that I published this book, the day it launched, is the people, the love, the support, the "I have your back, I wanna see you win" that came at me at 55 years old was nothing that I had ever experienced in my entire life. Like, I was swept up in this wave of love that was almost overwhelming. Like, I didn't know what to do. And I actually gave a talk on the Wisdom app later that evening, and I was talking in stops and starts, like, what, it was hard for me to even articulate the way this was, but there's a reason why I received that, and that is because I had done the work to up-level my inner world. And now, even though I had, great relationships come in that were now reflecting it back, this was like a reflection in a macro way. Like it was just boom, these people that were blowing me up and texting me and not tweeting. I don't really tweet, sharing stuff and can I have you on my stage? And I already started reading your book and all these type of things. And the only reason why I'm saying this, everyone, because this talk is not about my book. The reason why I'm saying this is because that was my work reflecting back to me in the most miraculous, awesome, large way that it was like for 2 days, I was kind of silent, even though I'd seen it in the micro, in the friendships, in the this, and these cool things. But that macro came to me and I was like, wow, I really did good. I really did clean up my inner world because this is now my outer world. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about is that Dr. Joe says this, Dr. Joe Dispenza, you all, and I'll probably not say it like he does, but the point is here, and he says something to the respect of repeated thoughts will create a mood, and this extended mood will create a temperament, and then the repeated temperament, of course, all of this is based on our personal reality with that, which then creates our personality. So the personality all comes from these repeated thoughts and beliefs that we're acting on. So when I first heard, oh, you're going to change your personality, this is after the fact for me, after I started doing all the work, I learned this. I was like, did I change my personality? Well, here's what the thing is, the likes, the dislikes, my humor, all those things, none of that changed. What changed is the lens that I saw the world and responded to the world. But it changed in such a beautiful way because I did address the beliefs and the thoughts that were creating the pain inside of me. And that's when I had the most remarkable awakening is what I really call it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, Dr. Joe Dispenza has definitely been a big part of his what he teaches and what he demonstrates. I love going to his YouTube channel and looking at the video testimonials. Like these stories are just
Yeah.
like, I mean, you see the people telling them in their own words, and like when I watch these people, I feel that they're being authentic, and so just the most remarkable stories of what happens when we allow our frequency, our vibrational frequency to rise. And so, yes, to many of the points you were speaking on, in terms of like what's mirrored back to us in the outward reality. So for you, with everything that was coming along with celebrating your recent book launch, which is so fun. I'm so happy to hear that because yeah, it's a big deal. It's like a big deal to like write a book and then publish it. And so I'm so thankful to hear that you had such a warm reception of that. But then also, our frequency has everything to do with how we feel. And I mean, it's both. It's how we feel in our own skin, in our body, like our mind. I've been in such amazing states where literally, I mean, it's another story, but literally every single cell in my body was pure bliss, like so much bliss to where I thought that and this is really getting into mystical. I thought that like all of my atoms were going to just disperse and like just like shoot out into the universe because I had so much bliss, and there's many different access pathways to these states that have been long referred to as mystical states throughout history. And what they
Yeah.
are is like a really high frequency, a very elevated frequency. And that's a big part of what Dr. Joe teaches people to do is to raise their frequency via meditation. And so that can have, I mean, if you go on his website, you're going to see stories of people that have cleared themselves of chronic, like chronic conditions,
Illness.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
like all kinds of things that cause pain and discomfort and all that kind of stuff. And then also just people that manifest new jobs, that manifest just like lots of money coming at them that they weren't expecting, because it's all an inner game that's reflective back to us. And
Yes.
so for instance, I mean, I've seen some testimonials, I've heard some testimonials, because he talks about some of this in the book, but then also I've him seen him share in some interviews on YouTube as well, how people, in a week-long workshop, they got like a massive check out of nowhere, just like,
During the workshop.
yeah, like while they were, during the week
I
long.
love
And
it.
because he said things like, I've heard him say things like, people come up to me because they manifest this money like out of nowhere, so to say. And I've had instances of this, like I've not like not like a huge check, but just there's been times when I've followed my soul's guidance, which has made no logical sense. My camera keeps, is my camera frozen for you?
You're good. No, you are
Okay.
solid.
Okay, good. That's good to know, because when I look at my camera, it's frozen. So I'm glad it's not showing up that way for you. Uh,
I'll message you in the private chat if something weird happens.
okay, sounds good. Uh, and so, yeah, I've had just instances where I've followed my heart and soul's guidance, which really didn't make any logical sense, but I could feel it was my heart and intuition's guidance. And I've had just, like some kind of a refund sent to me that just like out of the blue that I never would have expected. But I get this letter like, oh, we were going through our records and we found out that we like overcharged you for like 2 years. And so we owe you all this money. And I'm just like, what? And it came directly within probably like 10 days of a huge leap of faith that my heart told me to take. And, it challenged a lot of my personality's beliefs at the time about like security and all these things. And within 10 days, I got this, check in the mail, and the company basically said, yeah, we were going through our records, and we saw that we've been like overcharging you for 2 years, and we owe you all this. So like, here's a check. I was just like,
Dang, that's awesome.
so, but yeah, I've heard him say that people will come up to him that manifest, like significant sums of money, and they'll say, I want to, Dr. Joe, I want to buy you a cruise vacation. So, and it all comes back to frequency. So here we are, full blown in the woo.
I love that. This is, woo is the only place I want to live these days
Yeah.
because the mind has messed things up for me. That's when I struggle, is when I'm in the mind. And let me clarify that. So for anybody that's listening that may not know what that means, it means when I'm trying to control,
Yeah.
when I'm trying to how my way through life, when I think I know better than the infinite intelligence of the universe, then I am limiting myself in this teeny tiny speck of dust. Because we're talking about, if you really think about it, the infinite, eternal universe. I mean, the intelligence that is out there is far beyond the human understanding. And I believe that many of us, part of the issue is, and that's part of the path of being here. So there's no judgment in any of this. But the issue is that when our soul enters the body, we now have a brain, and the brain has an ego, and the brain has emotions, and we have feels, physical and emotional feels, and we sometimes can allow those things to guide us rather than us guiding those things based on whatever our beliefs might be. So if our beliefs are positive, the body follows the mind always, right? And so we'll start to get on what Abraham Hicks calls the high flying disc. But if we're staying in those negative thoughts, then we're going to get on what I'll call the low flying disc. So, yeah, when I have supernatural things, is what Dr. Joe calls it, right? Becoming supernatural. When we have these type of experiences, and we all have them, which is interesting, but some people haven't slowed down enough to recognize when they're happening. They might just say, oh, that was a coincidence. Oh, that was cool. But they don't really stop and think what energy had aligned, what beliefs had been dropped, what expansiveness had been opened in order for this thing to come in, right? So for me, my path has been, Timothy, is I almost called you Patrick, and that's your middle name, isn't it?
That's a nickname I was given back in the day. So you probably saw it on my social media at one time.
I love the name Patrick, so I almost called you Patrick, which is very interesting. And I've known you for how long? And I call you Timothy all day long. Weird. That was weird. That was mystical,
Yeah.
by the way. Like, we could probably back channel and dig into what that really means, because that came out of, like, I looked at you and I was like, Patrick. I'm like, that's not his name, Kristen. So right there, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to mystical. I don't let that stuff slide anymore. The fact
Yeah.
that I even came in while I'm saying this even further makes me go, yes, that's exactly what was happening. So what's interesting is that the more that these things started happening, the quieter I got, and I reflected upon what state was I in when that happened? What state was I in prior to that happening? What did I let go of? We can become more familiar with the state of the being because, like I said, we're so junked up in the head and the body, the physical form, that we forget about the being. So when, I just gave a huge talk on YouTube about intuition. It was a live, so it was a couple hours. But I talked about all these pieces and parts because it's available to all of us. And I would like to see this become so mainstream that is no longer called woo, that it's no longer called supernatural, that it's called being or life or just status quo. Wouldn't that be great if people started to really tap into this, and that could become more mainstream than people thinking that it's so out there, because it's not out there, you guys. It's built into the architecture of who we are as human beings. We've got the pineal gland inside, right? We've got sensory things inside. Like, it's all here. We've got the chakras. There's no denying there's energy centers. And we can feel things in those energy centers when we're paying attention. So I'll leave it at that first so you can catch up. You keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. No, I love that. I just wanted to affirm that, and that was one of the things that you and I talked about when you were beforehand. You were asking me what I wanted to speak to in this conversation. That's one of the things that I said is that woo woo is not out there to me. And I even looked up a definition, and it was, and the definition I saw online was something, the words were in there like mystical, kind of like supernatural, like those kinds of words.
Yeah.
And but it's not out there. It's not abnormal. It's actually what's happening all the time. And to me, a term that's really landing with me more and more and more is just simply becoming conscious. Like conscious,
Yeah.
and to me what that means is being much more in the present moment and out of story. Because as you said, the mind has been taught to tell stories all the time, and those stories hold weight because the stories that we tell over and over again, they become beliefs, and then again the outward reality mirrors back beliefs. So I can think back to roles I was in years ago where I did not, this is just a real life example, roles I was in where I was doing my best, and in these creative roles I was doing my best, but at the same time I didn't really see my own value. And so what was mirrored back to me in that role is that I wasn't valued, like I wasn't treated like I was valued. And so when I was unconscious, of course that irritated me. I was like, why am I not being, because it's so easy in the unconscious, and again there's no judgment because there's so many ladder rungs along this ascension process into more consciousness. There's always another, like another ladder
Yeah.
to come up into more consciousness. And so there's never judgment about like any any uh, any current state of anyone's life, or their where they're at with the amount of consciousness they have in their life, because it's ongoing for me. I know I've come a long way, but it's continually ongoing. But looking back, I was rather unconscious at that time, and so like me not being valued was kind of irritating to me. And then it was like shortly after I moved beyond that role that I was able to see it for what it was. I was like, oh, I wasn't valuing myself. And so no matter how hard I tried, or no matter how what I did in that role, I was doing my best to do my best. But at the end of the day, I didn't really value what I was contributing. And so the mirror reflection was, oh yeah, I don't really value what you're doing.
Exactly. Oh gosh, yeah. There it is. I
Yeah.
mean, that's it. So that was me in relationships, right? So I wasn't seeing myself as a great win, a great gift, a any of those things. So of course that was being reflected back to me. And I will add a little nuance to this too, that at the time, based on society's structures and all kinds of things, I literally thought my value was looks, body, looks, sexiness, whatever. I thought that was my value. So if I thought that was my value, guess what? I was attracting to me people who thought that was my value.
Mm.
Okay. So when I changed it into my value is that I'm kind and loyal and creative and understanding and gentle and ingenuitive and tenacious, and the list goes on. When I started to see myself as that was my value, then no longer was I trying to sell myself to somebody in some outward way, right? I would show up as my authentic self and let them unwrap the package. I didn't have to anymore hustle for approval and or audition for a potential partner. In fact, my current husband right now, I did the absolute opposite. I tell this story a lot. If he came, I remember he'd want to come over to my house, and I did hair at the time, and I just got off work, and I'd be in my daughter's flannel squared, pajama bottoms, and I'd have my hair in a ponytail. And I remember all I would do to prepare for him to come over was brush my teeth. I didn't do anything that was like, oh, I better reshower. I better smell good. I better be cute. Do these jeans make my butt look cute? None of that. I stopped doing any of that because at that point, I knew what my worth was, and it was me. It was internal inside of me. And to this day, when I say to him, what do you love about me? He will say things like that. He will say, you're so much fun. I love your smile. You laugh a lot. You did that. It's not like you're pretty, you're sexy. There's none of those things that he says the opposite. Right. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to glom onto real quick is when you said that you would stay with a particular person because you thought there would never be another person to come after that. I
Yeah.
related to that because I had one relationship that I did that, and I literally thought he was my last chance. Like, I remember thinking, this is it. Like, if it doesn't, well, it was unconscious, but if it doesn't work out with him, this is my last chance. And part of the shift for me was shifting from that limited thinking to the abundance of the universe. Okay. We're back to the point of there is infinite possibilities available to us, but we're the ones that are digging ourselves into a little hole. So, me thinking that he was the last one, I was willing to accept unacceptable behavior. I was willing to overlook things that were not going to, work for me in the long term in a relationship and just, that's fine. It wasn't fine. Okay. So, once I started to realize, really truly tap into the infinite abundance of the universe, and in particular areas in our lives, we can be really good in one area, like relationships, but not good in money, really good in this, but not good in that. Okay. But when I really started to let that sink in, that the sky isn't even the limit, it's infinity is the limit about what universe can orchestrate for us. Truly trusting that, sometimes that takes a leap of faith if someone has not experienced that. But I invite anybody who has not quite experienced that yet, just to see if these words resonate inside of you. If there's a part of you that goes, yeah, I kind of, or that feels really good, that's the woo, because you are sensing universal truth. And it's that sensing of universal truth that shifts us, because it's the exact way I healed my entire inner world. Was not by a coach, was not by a book, was not by, well, several books, but they were spiritual books. They weren't relationship books. I didn't know what I was healing, but I kept sensing that this feels true. So I would adopt that thing, and then my life would shift and I would heal a little bit more. So the same thing I feel is true with the abundance of the universe. When we really truly go, wait a minute, the universe is abundant for everybody, no matter what. And we can start healing. Marianne Williamson says this, that we are actually healing the blocks to the presence of love. So if you feel yourself, I have resistance and I don't feel like this is true right now here in my brain, but I can kind of feel it here, then all it's required is that you work on removing those blocks. Because when those blocks are removed, it's like the wall is out and the flood comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually reminds me of something that I heard from he's a channel. So he channels what's typically referred to as higher consciousness, higher intelligence, and that's a whole conversation in and of itself. I mean, that's one of the things that I do as well. And
Well, let's
because
pause
I,
right there, Timothy, for people who don't know what a channel is.
yeah,
Can you give a brief introduction to what a channel is and what you do?
yeah, absolutely. And thank you. Thanks for inviting me into giving more detail. So, just pausing for a moment here because I really just want to feel into this. Just to give some context, my whole path started for me what is often called an awakening path or a path into increased consciousness. It all started probably 12 or 13 years ago. And it was because something in me just felt like there had to be more. Because at the time I was a worry wart. Like I was literally worrying every waking hour that I was awake. And
Yeah.
so worried, stressed, eventually that led to panic attacks. But something in me was just like, there's got to be more than this. Like, this can't be what life is.
Gotta be a better
You know, it
way.
cannot be. It cannot be just being worried and afraid all the time. And so that's what I knew. And the worrying started back when I was a teenager. It just kind of like, the neural pathways build and they kind of become dense, and then it just becomes the norm, so to say. So
Yeah.
that's what all led me into this search. There's got to be more. There's got to be more. And so it led me to a lot of metaphysical teachings and books that are called spiritual, but in the sense of universal spirituality. And to me,
Yep.
universal spirituality is not, it's not a system, it's just a deeper understanding of life, the mechanics of life. But we've
Mhm.
already been talking about how the inner reality is actually where it all starts, and then the outer reality reflects it back to us. To me, that's universal. That's what I learned in universal spirituality. And now what I'm realizing for me is it's just actually becoming more conscious, like really coming out of the stories that tend to cause suffering, that play on repeat, and really experiencing life for what it is. To me, that's becoming more conscious when I experience more of how life, the universe is actually set up, and actually the mechanics and how they work, which again, we've
Yeah.
already covered quite a bit in this conversation. So as I went on that path, I started to work with things that for a long time have been called like indigenous practices. And it's just connecting with different substances in nature that for the longest time have been used in indigenous cultures and rituals and things like that. And I started to get exposed to them. I was living in Los Angeles, which it has a big metaphysical culture.
Mhm.
And so as I started to be in ceremonies, they were ceremonies, so everything was done with reverence and respect. And it was just, the whole idea was coming more deeply into the heart, because that's when my life got better, is when I started listening to my heart. Just shy of 30, I had a whatever life crisis, whatever you want to call it. Because when I realized I was about to go into my 30s, I was like, my 20s have not been anything what I wanted it to be. I haven't enjoyed my 20s. And I thought to myself, my 30s cannot be like my 20s. And so I just was like, and the thing that changed it all was when I listened to my heart, because that's what I realized, that up until that point, I was living in fear and panic and worry, and that was all up in my head. My heart was telling me to follow my dreams. And when I started to listen to my heart for the first time, which took me to LA, it took me away from everything I'd ever known, like 2,600 miles across the North American continent. That's when my life began to turn around, when I started listening to my heart. And so a few years in, these indigenous practices are designed to bring you more deeply into your heart and more deeply into what's often referred to as intuition or an inner knowing, just the inner wisdom, the one that's the voice that often feels quiet, straight to the point, and just tends to lead. It's always led me out of my comfort zone, out of the familiar. And so as I connected more deeply with that, I realized that through my heart, because this is something that Dr. Joe and other people like Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton talk about, is that the heart, the heart space in the center of our chest actually has a magnetic field that is far surpasses that of the head. I think it's something like 10 times or more, like you know, the consciousness and the electromagnetic field of the head. It's like something like 10 times or 10 times or more whatever the head is designed to be. And so as I went into my heart intelligence, I realized that I could receive universal guidance. So, and it came to me once I realized that life is all one thing. There's no such thing as separation. And so once I realized that life is all one thing, it just became kind of like natural that the universe, because it's alive, because it's intelligent, because it's all connected, there's something called universal intelligence that we all have access to in our body. And to me, it comes in through my heart and my gut. So in the more metaphysical terms, that's the heart chakra and the solar plexus chakra. And I just recognized that I could receive universal wisdom when I connected to those spaces. And a lot of the indigenous practices that I engaged with were about clearing my energy, clearing my field, because we all have this electromagnetic field. Sometimes it's called an aura, and it carries energy buildup from our entire life. And so as I cleared up all like the past trauma and the entangled energies that kept me feeling heavy in life and all of that. It became easier to connect to my heart and my intuition. And then I realized that I could access universal intelligence. Like it could communicate with me and it could give me guidance, which allowed me to find more ease and grace and flow in my life. So that's when I became familiar with channeling. It was allowing my ability to receive intelligence from the whole big shebang into my heart that guided me in my life and made life make more sense. Even on a logical level, it made it make more sense. And it just helped me feel my way through life.
Yes.
And one more thing I'll say, and this is just like all to give context, then I'll just wrap it up with, what I described channeling in like 2 or 3 sentences. This is all just kind of context and background. But one phrase that changed my life forever was, I'll make sure I get it right. Feeling is seeing, and seeing is knowing.
Mhm.
So I'll say it one more time. Feeling is seeing, and seeing is knowing. And what that means to me is that we are designed to feel our ways through life. Feeling is the most important, the most potent, the most powerful, because feeling tells us yes or no. This is right for me. This is not right for me. I like this way this feels. I don't like the way this feels. And then, the mind can be like this kind of backup to where, like, so for instance, if the intuition says, like, now's your time to, follow your dream. Now's the time. Now's the time. Well, the mind can come in and like, okay, I need to figure out how I'm going from A to B. Like, am I flying? Am I driving? The mind, helps with like the steps, whereas the feeling, the intuition is the guide. And so that's all context. So to me, what channeling is now I allow my body to go into a deeply connected state in my heart. And when someone sits in a session with me, which I often do on video, just like this, the best way I've heard it described that just makes it so easy for me is that that person's soul, they give permission, because on a soul level, we all give permission. So if they've hired me to be in a session, they've already given permission because they've
Yeah.
they've hired
Yes.
me. And so when they sit down to me on a metaphysical level, what's happening is their soul is talking to my soul. And my soul is receiving an energy stream which helps them just see their life more clearly, see their blocks more clearly, like blocks in thinking, blocks in belief more clearly. And just the most amazing things happen when people all of a sudden, because a lot of times these beliefs, they are so like having blinders on. It's
Yes,
like
they are. Yes, they are.
beliefs, like you can't see anything outside of it. But suddenly, when there's a soul transmission and it just says something like, but what if you saw it like this, which takes them outside the blinders? All of a sudden, all the time I see just looks go like,
Yes.
gosh, I've never seen it like that before. And so it gets people out of their blocks, it gets people out of their stories, out of their limitation. And ultimately, I also hear things like, I just feel so connected in this session to my heart because when I channel, I open myself up to pure unconditional love, what I refer to as love from the source.
Mhm.
And that's not just in my location because, again, when you go deep into all of this, time and space are actually not what they appear to be. So when I'm connecting with someone soul to soul, the love that I invite in, they can also access that love. And so they feel more connected is what I often hear. And their soul talking to my soul and the words that I'm getting from that energy connection that are then spoken to them, it just helps. I mean, what I'll say is people come to me with their biggest life questions. Like I'm talking about the things that they're like, this has been a big issue for me for like a year or sometimes more. Like the one thing I cannot figure out. And oftentimes, like
Love
sometimes
that.
just a 30-minute session, people will be like, wow, I get it now. So I
Yes.
know I went really in depth, but that's all that's what it is.
No, that wasn't too in-depth at all because every part of that you're such a great speaker, Timothy, you know that, and I one of the
Mhm.
reasons why I connected with him on wisdom right away, I was like, I love his articulation of these type of things because it's in a way that is not, like, super out there, super so people can like really relate to what you're saying on such an understanding that they can actually apply it to their life. And the blinders, I often see that as it's a trajectory. Like we're continuing to go on this trajectory, but when that looked funny getting close to the camera, but when we have a new perception that is introduced because we're still repeating the same thoughts over and over and over and over and over again because we have 60,000 thoughts a day and something like 90 to 95% of those thoughts are on repeat, which is creating our same patterns and our same trajectory. So the minute there's a new thought introduced, okay, new idea, new belief that actually resonates because people, I mean, I've had many times people try to introduce a thought to me and I'm like to me now, since I've gotten in touch with what this feels like, I feel it through my heart center as well. There's like a wall. It's not a wall, but that's what, like, I'm not blocking, I'm not guarding from it, but there's like a nope, like there's a bounce off bling when that doesn't resonate. When it resonates, it penetrates in. And that's how
Yeah.
I personally can feel the difference. So, this is per each person. This journey is about us understanding what it feels like when we are receiving, because it might be different for everybody. Some people feel it through the top of their head.
Yep.
People feel it in all different kinds of ways. But back to trajectory, when we're going this direction and someone introduce or we introduce or we're open to receiving from source a new idea, thought, belief, perspective, we go boop and we start to change trajectory. And the
Yeah.
path, we automatically start going a different way. That's always an improved way. It can't not be an improved way because it came from source.
Yeah.
Okay. So it didn't come from the ego because the ego doesn't feel good. Source, like you were saying, I forgot what you called it, quiet and straight to the point inner voice, right?
Yeah.
And that it is so straight to the point because my messages are not paragraphs. They're like, stop talking. That was one of my messages once. Stop talking. Another one was keep going.
Yep.
But they're calm, they're neutral. And I believe our practice is quieting the noggin,
Yep.
quieting the monkey brain. And so we can get this when this stream of consciousness comes in, we go, oh, I heard that
Yeah.
because it's not going to hammer us like the ego does. The ego is going to hammer us. This stream is going to say, keep going. And then it's going to keep going, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to come and go, keep going, keep going, keep going. That's not the way God works. That's not the way universe works, right?
Yep.
So when we're quiet, we really work on that, which I want to sort of dip into meditation. I don't know how much you do meditation, but I think meditation is an excellent concept to unpack in this woo-woo conversation because there's a lot of misperceptions about what meditation is and
Yeah.
how it's supposed to look. And I will tell everybody right now, I have never once sat on my butt with my fingers like this
Yeah.
on my knees. Not once. Not once. In fact, most of my meditations are laying down. Even Dr. Joe's, who says sit up straight. I'm like, "No, Dr. Joe, I don't wanna sit up straight." And
Yeah.
and believe me, you guys, he has a purpose for this because he's trying to bring us a stream of energy through our energy centers. But if I'm able to get to that stage without that, that works for me. May not work for other people. So, but what has happened for me in meditation, a couple things. Number 1 is that I didn't know. I started meditating, everyone, for the sole and simple fact that I was an anxious disaster. I didn't do it because, "Hey, I'm gonna get groovy and go connect with source." That wasn't even in my vision field. I had so much anxiety that I remembered my days of Kundalini yoga. I remembered all that deep breathing and, breath of fire and these really, really simple meditation poses and repeating little mantras. I have some on my wall right here. And, and I would leave there and I would feel like, whoo, like I just had a, massage and I was on the beach for 2 weeks. I have no money fears. Like I felt so great after there. So I remembered that. And I said, I need to get back into breathing. So by doing that, I did manage to get rid of my anxiety. But what also happened is I created space in my thinking. And in the space between that monkey hamster wheel crazy thing that God was going on, all of a sudden I would just think, God, I call it God. I'm comfortable with God. I also call it source and universe energy. But I would say, God, can you, help me with this or show me a better way or give me a better perspective? those type of things. Help me perceive the situation correctly is one of my favorite prayers, and that's from A Course in Miracles. Help me to perceive this situation correctly. And what that
Mm.
means is not through the lens of the ego, through the lens of my higher self. And then the thought would come in, or the stream, or whatever we'd want to call it, would come in, and I'd say, I'd feel it for just an instant. It was like a little, like a little breath came through, and I'd say, okay, I felt that. And then I would grab it, because it's not going to keep hammering us. So I'd go, okay, that resonated. And then I would start to apply this. And people want to call this woo. And again, circling back to, it's not woo. This is you. This is me. This is us. We are spiritual beings. If we even like that term, we could call it something else. So to me, it was um, really creating the space for that to come in. And just one last thing is that my intuition, I want to say it started showing up. I'm going to say I noticed it for the very first time in 7th grade or 1st grade. I was 7 years old, very first time. And I think it's because I spent a lot of time alone. I was, blissfully playing with my kittens or my Barbies, or cleaning my room, or writing a poem, or riding my bike. And in those alone times, I was just very much in presence. And then I would receive a message. And I think I had a quiet enough brain at the time that those messages would come in. And then they started showing up as real. Like this thing would come. So even though you, whoever's listening, may not have attached to your intuition as a young child, does not mean you're exempt from intuition. It doesn't mean that you cannot stream consciousness. It just means that you've not been practicing it yet. Just like I don't play tennis well yet, or foosball or something, because I'm just not practicing it. But it doesn't mean, because we're all divine sparks of God. We are all soul siblings. We are all 100% connected through this energetic force, that you're not exempt. We all have this.
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with everything you just described. And it reminded me of something I was about to say before I got into the description of what channeling means to me. And it's this, I feel it really goes along well with everything that you were just saying, is that this is another individual that channels. His name is Daryl Anka, and he
Mm-hmm.
channels uh, a higher intelligence that he refers to as Bashar. And he's been doing this, I think, for like 30 to 40 years, so a long time. I mean, imagine the imagine the information. And so
Yeah.
I watched a whole documentary on him on Gaia, Gaia, and I was just like,
TV.
oh my gosh, I was just like, holy cow. Because like he in the documentary, they show that he sits down with scientists that are working on like cutting edge, like just new things that have never been done before in science. And he'll go into the channeled state, and through the channeled state, he gives the scientists next steps. And he talks about how every time they meet again, they're like, yeah, the last steps that you channeled worked. So now we're ready for like things that just, so this is what I mean by
Ta-da!
universal intelligence. Like scientists are going to this channel to do things that have never been done before in the physical, and they're getting like, here's your next like 3 steps or whatever. They do it, it worked, and they come back, they're like, okay, we're ready for you to channel the next 3 steps. Because Bashar is from another, again, like no apologies, Bashar is from another civilization, an advanced civilization in space. And so again, he's channeling this other intelligence that's giving scientists here on Earth steps. And in the documentary, they say the scientists keep coming back because the steps always work. He basically says like they keep coming back for more, because, and they'll be like, yeah, whatever you said last time worked. So, I mean, to me, it's just like that's so cool. But one of the things I heard him say was that in our natural state, our natural unhindered state, which is not the busy mind, which is the peaceful beingness, which to me is more living from the heart,
Yeah.
our bodies, because we have this electromagnetic field around us, again, that's often referred to as an aura. And Dr. Joe talks about the field, and again, others like Bruce Lipton and whatnot. Our field in its natural state is designed to attract everything that we need, and actually the fulfillment of our dreams to us. It's designed to
Mm-hmm.
attract it to us like easily. Everything we need for this life to thrive and to have an amazing life is actually designed to come to us, which I know may sound like really, but yeah, I mean, if you listen to these people and they talk about like the quantum mechanics and like you'll hear it all starts to connect. That's why I've stayed on this path because everything I learned over here connected over here. Like people talking about quantum and the field and all these things and channeling. It just always the dots always connect. And so he said, what happens though is that it's the beliefs that we take on that block that process.
Yes.
And so when we were talking about like blinders before, so the beliefs like life is supposed to be hard, I'm not worthy of that much. Um, who am I to have a good life? These are beliefs. And when they become beliefs to me, the way I like to look at it is like we have this hardware, the brain, and then the software are the beliefs. And so just like on the phone, there's the hardware and you can install all these apps and the apps do different things. The beliefs do different things too. And they actually, again, the beliefs inward tell the outward what to reflect and to create in our outer world. So a belief like, I'm not good enough to have my dreams come true, that belief in and of itself will stop dreams from manifesting because
Absolutely.
it says to the rest of the universe, like the cosmic field, if you will, like, not me, not over here, nope, I don't deserve that. And that, again, this is an invitation, but a part of this journey is realizing how powerful we are, because what we believe manifests. And what we believe shouldn't manifest, we're so powerful that we will keep it from manifesting. So again, and I felt like this in my 20s. Like I had a dream, a childhood dream of studying acting in Los Angeles. My entire 20s, I never acted on that dream because my paradigm was like, that's only for special people. Like that was my story. That's
Yep.
only for special
Yep.
people. And what broke through my story is when I started watching all these things and I saw like the actors behind the scenes and in interviews. And what broke through that paradigm for me, I was like, oh, they're just like me.
That's what it boils down to, right?
Yeah.
We make it so much more complicated. May I add on to this?
Yeah.
So, one is that, like you said, if you don't believe that dream's not for me, the universe goes, as you wish. And if we say
Exactly.
that dream is for me, universe goes, as you wish, right? Ask and it is given.
Exactly.
So whatever we believe is what we will experience.
Yeah.
And people do try to fight this because they've gotten themselves into a place based on how they've processed through their life. And this is innocent. And I will never say this to ever attack anybody because I've gotten myself into places that are how I process life.
Yeah.
But there's always another perspective that we can take,
Mhm.
always. So if we're sitting in this perspective and this perspective is causing us to suffer, I know when I'm in suffering thoughts now, Timothy, that I am not in my higher self. If
Yep.
I'm suffering, I'm in my ego, fearful, controlled, small self. So that
Mhm.
is my indicator right now that I'm causing this. I'm causing this within, but I have a choice. I have a choice about which side of the psyche I'm going to commune with at any time. Am I going to commune with fear? Or am I going to commune with faith? Because that's all there is. There's light, there's dark, or dark and light, and higher self, lower self, whatever it might be. So I get to choose which side I'm in at any given time. And I had a belief, and sometimes it takes a minute for us to unpack these beliefs because for me, they're hidden, man. There's just been some where I can just feel this resistance, like I'm trying to go forward, and it feels like my arms are tied back and my legs are like I can't quite move forward. And I've sat in the back patio with my husband. I don't know what's stopping me. I
Yeah.
don't know, but I can feel like this inability to fully step into whatever my next best step is. And this is what I believe the spiritual journey is about is to find those things, unpack those things. So, in different ways, I don't even know if I'd call it channel. I don't know what I'd call it, but maybe it is channeling. And you can help me with this. I used to just call it intuition, but when I've had this ability, and I actually talk about it in my book, and not very long, just real briefly, I talked about it because I was talking about one of my limiting blocks. But when I sit with somebody who's telling me, their problem, this has started in high school, and I'm sitting with them and I'm listening, all of a sudden this knowledge comes out of me and I would share it with them. And if it was in hindsight, If it was too much capital T truth from them, it was too much light shining on an area that they didn't want, they would reject me, they would reject the idea, and sometimes they would reject the friendship. So I noticed that when I spoke what felt very natural to me, again, this is took started taking place at 7 years old. So to me, I thought everybody was like this. So I'd share this stuff with people and then I would get rejected somehow, some way. So I started to think to myself, oh, don't talk like that. Don't share that. Not having any guidance, not having anybody telling me what this is. And by the way, you guys, I thought it was just my personality. I didn't realize that I was streaming wisdom. Okay. So I started to feel like who I am as a person was rejected, and that really affected my voice. Okay. So here I am now at this age. I started at probably went through my tsunami about 42. So probably around maybe 44-ish is when I wrote my book and things like that. So it's been what, 11 years or something since I've been doing all this work. But this has been an unpacking because, again, not having any mentors ahead of me, didn't even know how to look up a mentor, didn't even know I needed a mentor. I had to slowly unpack these things for myself. And one of my hidden beliefs was no one cares about what I say. No one wants to hear you, Kristen, because way back in high school, when I would speak truth, I would be rejected. Within relationships, I would be rejected. When I went to my girlfriends and was honest and forthright and with so much love in my heart, because I want people to know I wasn't coming in like some wrecking ball. I'm like sitting there with so much love, wanting to, and they'd get defensive or all these things. All of those messages formed a belief in my head that there's something wrong with me. My words piss people off, all these things. So it took a minute for me to really break through the fact that those particular people weren't ready. It was too much light for them. And I also learned that to ask permission first and say, hey, I'm feeling something. I have an idea about what might be going on. Are you open? And a lot of times, because a lot of people are people pleasers, they go, yeah, sure. And then you tell them and they get that deer in headlights look like, oh my God, you can see right through me. And then they don't like it. So if I notice that headlights look now, and I'm talking just friendships, clients pay me for this information, right? They want to know. They're there. They're ready. They're naked. They're bald. They're humbled. They're on the ground. They're like, help me. But the people that aren't, then the minute I see that, I back off. I'm like, this is not my job to push in. I don't need, whatever. So my whole point of saying all this is that becoming a public speaker and owning public speaker was a big thing for me too. Even though I was public speaking, I wouldn't own that terminology because I felt like it meant something that I didn't like my brain. So the point that I'm trying to make to everybody is now I'm on YouTube Live. I give 2-hour talks, people love it, whatever. I'm Wisdom app. And I no longer fear that because the people who are open and are seekers, they flock in, just like I flock in. Just like when you're talking right now, I'm just like glued, right? I had to realize that it's not this little tiny micro world that I'm living in that gets to determine the value of my voice. First of all, it was my world. But then that voice extended out. And then I realized that there's this whole other world out of there once I started valuing me that valued me. So it takes a minute. And I want people to understand they're going to hear this now or on the replay that just because you're struggling in one particular block, that doesn't mean you're sunk and you're stuck forever. It just means this is a deeply rooted one that may take a minute.
Yeah. Yes. So true. And yeah, what feels true in my experience that I feel speaks to everything that you were just saying is that what I've noticed on my journey is that there really is a when you're speaking of higher self, which is a term that I also use, to me higher self is like it's my soul self, that higher wisdom that really understands how life works and understands that I was exposed to a lot of beliefs culturally and societally speaking that actually aren't in alignment with how the universe actually works. It's like that living in the head that tends to cause so much stress and drama and all that. So that's not universal intelligence to me. Universal intelligence is what leads me back to simplicity. It leads me back to love. It leads me back to connection and to unity, to realizing that my dreams are in my heart for a reason, to experiencing more peace and serenity in my being. To me, that's what universal intelligence is. It leads me deeper into all of those things and away from all of the stress and the drama that comes from all of that, like separation, head-based thinking. And so what I've seen in my journey is that my soul totally, I this is what I feel true for me. My soul totally, or my higher self totally, has a rhythm as to when I'm ready to see things, see certain blocks and see things that I've been blind to in an unconscious sense. Because all of a sudden, I'll just see it like I've never seen it before, and I'm just like, wow,
Don't you
I'm
love
really
that?
glad. I'm so glad that this has gone from unconscious to conscious, because now I don't have to keep showing up in this area of my life with a certain kind of thinking, with a certain kind of actions. And that's one of the things that has cleaned up my relationships so much. And I know we're at about an hour, and so like I'll keep it brief, but just like that's in my experience. Is my soul, my higher self has like this a rhyme and a reason to when I am ready to see something go from an unconscious kind of like blinders on aspect of my life to like blinders off. And then I'm just like, whoa, I'm so glad to be able to like see with the blinders off, because now I can show up as a completely different person in this area of my life. And as we show up differently, I do find that the results, so again, to be specific in relationships, when the blinders have come off to certain unconscious relationship patterns, and then I see that I can show up completely differently, those relationships sometimes they've transformed like overnight. Like literally, I'm like, it's a completely different relationship now because I saw how I was being unconscious. I was able to see it.
Yes. Because the only people we can change is ourselves,
Yeah,
period. So no matter what's going on in any of my relationships, I get to change, shift, morph, evolve me. So even
exactly.
if something is going on with a person that anybody that I would say, "Oh my gosh, this person is doing this," and they're like, "That's awful." Because sometimes people's behavior is downright dastardly or crappy, right? But it doesn't matter what they're doing. How am I responding to this? What is my responsibility about how I'm going to respond to this? Am I going to respond in a way that is supported and rooted in my love and value of self? Am I going to respond in a way that's trying to control or manipulate or try to make somebody else wrong? Because that's like the standard is a lot of times we want to make that person wrong. And we do that innocently as well because it's not okay. So we think if I can convince them that this thing they're doing is wrong, then we're going to be good. But if those people aren't to that level of taking responsibility or consciousness, they're not going to see it. So we're going to bang our heads against the wall or bang our hand. We're going to bloody knuckles and bloody foreheads trying to get to this person. And it does nothing. So what I learned along the path is, well, I can take responsibility for me. So let's say this person is doing something dastardly to me. My choice, I can stay here or I can leave.
Yeah.
That's it. It's really quite simple. And I might mention first, like, hey, that's not okay with me, or whatever. I'm trying to come up with an on the fly thing. Let's say someone's raised their voice to me and they're yelling at me. It's always the quick one for me to come up with, but there's a plethora of other things that people could be doing. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I can't convince them because they'll say, well, I'm this and you did that. No, 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 no. And it just turns into this big, two rams hitting each other. So I just go, you know, you're raising your voice right now. That's offensive to me. That like really is a lot of aggressive energy coming at me right now. Would you be willing to lower your voice or to calm down or whatever the words might be so that I can actually hear you? And if they do, we win. But if they don't, I don't stay in it. I remove myself. And sometimes it's in the removing of self and not in a dramatic, aggressive way, just like, okay, well, when you can come to a place where I can hear you, I'll be back because I love you and I want to hear you, but I can't stay in this. And just that me taking care of me has shifted those people because now they have an opportunity to look at themselves and become more conscious. because there's a lot of people, let's say for yelling or any other behavior, it's been so prevalent in their life for so long and no one's ever called them out on it. So they've enabled it. Okay. So then they come to you and they're doing the same thing. It doesn't feel wrong to them because nobody else has called them out on it. So it doesn't mean you have to stay in that with them. So that's one thing that I wanted to say. The other thing is in regards to like you're saying, where we really get into the stream of consciousness. I found that I am much more relaxed in social situations, in going live. It's like I've had, I don't know how many interviews this week. I wasn't nervous for any of them. Even though I get on live and I talk and it's great, there was always this little tiny niggle of nervousness that was present. But what I've noticed is that when I'm truly speaking from my heart, there's nothing to be nervous about. And I'm just talking, I'm just being me. And that same feeling is that relaxed feeling that I go into now social settings. I don't need to perform. I don't need to be someone that I'm not. I just need to be Kristen. And even if it means Kristen feels like sitting on the sofa against the wall and being quiet, I'm no longer worried that someone might judge me. They might come up and say, "Is something wrong?" I'd say, "No. I just feel like being quiet and observing." See what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
it's amazing how when we really start working on self like this, life gets really simple. It gets really simple. We're much more relaxed because frankly, we've taken our hands off the wheel. We've stopped trying to control outcome. We've stopped trying to control people the way people see us, which by the way, we can never control because they're always going to have their filter. And I'm just going to leave it like this last thing and then I'm going to let you go. Say your piece. Is that I heard this message, I don't know, it was in the past year or two where someone said, 1/3 of the people are going to like you, 1/3 of the people are not going to like you, and 1/3 of the people aren't going to care in either way. They're going to be ambiguous, if that's the word. And at first, my ego was like, "Oh, what do you mean people aren't going to like me?" And I was all, indignant about it. But that's again, the voice of the ego is always the first voice. The second voice that came in, which was the voice of God and universal intelligence, said, "Oh, what a relief. I don't have to, there's only naturally 1/3 of the people are going to like me. The other 2/3 naturally are not going to, or they're not going to carry either way. So I really don't need to change anything about me. I get to just be me." So the first voice was fear and the second voice was God.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I just want to check with you on because I could respond to that, but I also just want to check in because I know when we talked about it, are you okay on time? Did you want to start to wind down, or how are you feeling
Yes,
about
we
time?
can. What time is it? 1:30? Let me see, make
It's
sure. Hold on.
yeah, your time is about 1:35.
I love this spontaneous stuff. Yes, we can go. How about 15 more minutes?
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I just wanted to
Sound
check
good?
in to be respectful. And I'm keeping an
Thank you.
eye as we go. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you talked about that, just because this is something that comes up in channeling. And so first I'll speak to the channeling part, and then also there's a phrase that comes to mind from Byron Katie, which I love because this is a big one.
Love
This
her.
is this is I do too. Everything I've seen of hers, yeah, I've always enjoyed, and I'll get to the quote in a moment. Uh, but this is honestly one of the biggest blocks because I do the channeled sessions, which is me going into a state where I open up my vessel to that higher universal intelligence and it comes in through my heart. And that's one kind of session with me, which is again like the intuition. It's very direct to the point. It's based in love and empowerment. It's like it brings forth like this is how life works. This is how energy works. Like it when the situation's at hand, it will say like these are the limitations that these are the limitations that are being sensed in this situation. Do you also see them as limitations? It'll kind of like give the person like an opportunity. Do you see these as limitations the way this is seen by a limitation from universal intelligence, like that kind of a thing? And then I do the coaching or the guidance. I like to say guidance these days, like the guidance with me one to one, like this style, where I call that personal breakthrough work, personal breakthrough guidance. It doesn't matter which one I'm engaged in. one of the biggest blocks that I see come to the table, because even in the channeled state, like my ears can still hear the conversation. It's just that I'm speaking from that heart, the
Yes.
energy that comes into my heart, I'm speaking from that place, and that's very clear, on behalf of universal intelligence, if you will. But either way, because my ears are turned on in both kinds of sessions, one of the biggest things that I see come up as blocks is people go, I'm scared about what other people will think of me. And like that is one of the biggest, like, I
Yes, it
want to
is.
do this. This is my dream. Like, I want to, like, this is what I want to bring into my life. And so many times and I'm scared of what other people will think of me, or will think of me doing that, or welcoming this in, or going in that direction. And the channel perspective is, again, it's always straight to the point. And it's like, well, who's actually thinking these thoughts? Like, you're saying it's them out there, but are you really in their head? No.
Judging
Like,
self. Yep.
yeah, it's like channeling is like, who is thinking these thoughts that if I do this, they will think that? Who is thinking these thoughts? And usually the person is just like, I'm thinking those thoughts. And it's like, so is it really them, or is it you that's, like, who is really judging here? Is it really them, or is it you? And I understand, like, I'll bring it to where, like, if someone has actually had maybe like a family member say to them, like, I don't approve of blah 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 blah, like, you want to pursue this degree, you want to like move to that country, like, if a family member actually verbally says, like, I don't approve of this choice, that's one thing. But that's typically not what's happening. Typically what I see is people, in their minds just projecting outwards, like, if I do this, other people won't approve. And
Exactly.
so in the channeling, it's always brought back to, but who's actually thinking these thoughts, like, and who's actually judging this choice, this potential choice? And again, usually with that framing, people are always like, oh, it's me, like, I'm projecting my fears onto other people, I'm projecting my
Yep.
judgment on other people, I'm the one that's judging this choice. So there's that, which I just find to be so empowering, because it's also true in my life. There's been so many times where I've held back because it's been, what will they think? Which again is, what am I thinking in my own head? What am I judging in my own head? So there's
100%.
that. Yeah, there's that, which I just feel brings so much empowerment into, like, how we tend to hold ourselves back. And again, from this fear of they won't like me, but who is they? Like, who is they? Because who's the one thinking the thoughts? I mean, I find that empowering. And then the thing that has to do with Byron Katie is that this to me speaks to, again, the universal intelligence that, again, that natural state, if we were all living from our heart consciousness, our heart consciousness to me is where we feel the unity, that all of life is one, and that's that universal unconditional love. If we were all in that state, there is no, like, you're from this country, I'm from that country. It's like, it's literally a clear seeing, like, oh,
Mhm.
you come from the source, I come from the source. That
Yes.
tree comes from the source, that owl comes from the source. We are all the same thing. And that love and connectedness, there is none of this, like, I mean, could there still be preferences? Like, does your human not like that smell? Sure. And the other
Yeah.
human likes that smell? Sure. There is that, but there's just, in that connection, this is to me where the Byron Katie quote comes from. One of her quotes is, everybody loves me, they just don't know it yet.
I love her. God, I love her.
Because she's speaking to the heart consciousness. She's like, if
Yeah.
everyone was in their heart consciousness, they would realize they love me because I am them.
I
That's just,
I love her so much, and I listen to her all the time. I've never heard that. But that
yeah.
is oh my god, I'm adopted. Everybody loves me, they just don't know it yet. Yeah. Yeah, I say yes to that. I love that. I wanna say something about the judgment real quick before we close up here, is that
Yeah.
that's something that, I've discovered along my path too, is that my fear of what other people would think was the places I was actually judging myself. So
Mm.
when I learned to work on those fears, those judgments that I had of self that I was afraid, somebody else was going to say, guess what happened? They were not reflected back to me. But when I had those feelings of, even if they were just little, they'd somehow get reflected back to me. But it was me going, wow, I'm actually judging me. And sometimes I have to take a big, bold, audacious step and I have to say F it. Like, if I'm afraid of maybe when I was first doing blogs, I remember I'd be so scared to hover over that cursor over the publish button because somebody might think something about me. And then I would say F it and I'd hit publish. Same thing with my podcast, F it. And I mean, I just was audacious enough to just do it and see what would happen. See if someone lost a limb, see if I got hate mail, see if, is anything going to happen? So I had to get that drastic with myself, that is anybody going to die if I publish this? Is anybody going to, and the answer was always no. And I thought, can you handle anything that comes your way regarding this? And the answer was yes. So I would hit publish and send and post and, whatever. And over time, what that did when I saw that so many people, here's what we need to understand too, people, is that so many people are looking for hope. So many people want faith. So many people want to see other people win because it inspires them to win. So when Marianne Williamson says that there's nothing wonderful about us playing small, she's exactly right. It is us playing large. It's us coming from that true centered space inside that ultimate beingness where we can just be our authentic self in whatever glorious weirdness that presents in. I'm weird. I do weird things. I'll give talks with my horrible walking hat that was smushed in the back seat of my car. And it's like, I don't care because if I had to wait until I took a shower and my hair looked right and all this stuff, I'd probably never post. There's one video where my hair is sticking, like I had like 5 hairs sticking up right here. I was like, that's me. I mean, so it's that continued acceptance of ourself that we soon realize that it actually gives people the courage to accept themselves. Okay. When we're
Yeah.
not trying to be perfect, when we're not trying to um, demonstrate something else to the world. That's one of the things I was going to say. And I had one more thought and I don't remember. So that's it. That's all I can think of right now.
Yeah. No worries. No worries. Oh my goodness. Well, I feel that for anyone who finds their way to this conversation, because that's just what happens on YouTube. Like I know that happened for me in the beginning. Like I have these questions and I would just be on YouTube and suddenly I'd find my way to a video and the video would just like be talking about what I wanted to know more about. So for anyone who finds their way to this video at any point in what we call the future, to me, this is just kind of like dipping the toes into like seeing woo as or woo woo as not anything out of the ordinary. It's actually what Chris and I have been bringing to the table today is actually what's actually going on. It's just that the mystery, the mystery, so to say, people stopped paying attention and asking the questions, and cultures got much more comfortable with being told what to do and told what to
Yeah.
think. And seems like a lot of people are not enjoying that. I mean, I know I didn't enjoy that. That's why I started to ask there's got to be more. There's got to be more. And so this is to me just like dipping the toes into metaphysics and what's sometimes called woo woo and mainstream. But it's really actually the mechanics of the universe, the mechanics of life, and the mechanics of experiencing oneself as a human. So if you if you want to know more, there's a bunch of videos on my channel. I have quite a few episodes of the Restore Yourself podcast on here, and just other like shorts that you can watch. And then also in the description of this video, I have tagged Kristen, her YouTube page, because she also has a number of videos on her YouTube as well. And I linked her website and her Instagram because she's always sharing. I'm always seeing her post and about. I see her bringing these mechanics into everyday situations, like the relationships, the self-belief, the self-love, the confidence, the worthiness. So I love seeing Kristen posting up, bringing these universal mechanics and showing them how to apply in relationship with self and relationship with others, and just allowing your life to become better overall. So I know Kristen has a bunch of content, and again, you can find those 3 ways to connect with her in the description to this video.
And
So yes, your book. Yes. Yeah.
this is my brand new book, everyone. This was just released on April 11th. And if you're interested in this, you can find it on Amazon. You just type in The Recovering People Pleaser and my name will pop up. It comes in Kindle and softback.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I can go in and update the profile description as well. I can add a link to the book so it's just
Oh, I
easy
can give
access.
you the short link. There's a real short one that Daryl
Okay,
from Wisdom made for me. So yeah, that'd be great, Timothy. But I just want to say
okay.
thank you to you, my beloved soul brother, who we've, like you said in the beginning, we connected so easily and effortlessly on Wisdom, and we've remained friends and we chat with each other. And of course, anytime you reach out for a conversation, it's a heck yeah. It's not even thought about. It's like, yeah, of course. Yeah, whenever. The logistics are a different story. But thank you so much. I'm so honored to know you. I'm so blessed to be in your presence always. Your light shines brightly, your beautiful spirit. And I really highly encourage anybody that's listening to get one of his sessions. I mean, if you really are ready for that breakthrough experience where something is coming straight from spirit, straight from source, that is going to help you have that breakthrough that you've been looking for, this is what you need. Because believe me, I've been that person that's been stuck in that groove and I couldn't quite find my way out, and wish so many times there was someone like Timothy that I knew back then that could just say, hey, this is what's happening. And I could be like, gotcha, and then we can really start to heal. So how can they get a hold of you, Timothy? Do you have a website?
Yeah, I put my information. Thank you for also bringing up the invite for me to share. Yes, also below Kristen's information in the description, you'll find my information. And yeah, I have my website. It includes a link where you can go to apply for a channeled session if that's something you'd like to be interested in. Because I have people fill out a short application just so I can see if they really understand what channeling is and if they really have a readiness. Because I will say it's I mean, to me, it's the most natural thing ever just to hear universal wisdom, uh, and it's very again, it's a direct invitation into someone's taking like ownership of their power in life, and so it is
Yeah.
very straight to the point and very it can be very eye-opening. And so I have a brief application just so I can make sure the person really is calling that in, because I will say that I'll be candid. Like in my state right now, sometimes there's things that I feel deeply and I want to say, but sometimes my head gets involved and holds me back. In the channeling, it just comes through. Like there's no like, and so it's very much an invitation into someone really stepping into their power in life. So that's why I have the brief application, just so that people can, when I look at the application, I'm like, oh, they really want this,
You
like
can feel
they're
it.
not, because if someone's hesitating, like, oh, I'm unsure, like, that'll come through. If someone, like, I can tell when someone's just like, how soon can we have this? Because their application is
Yeah.
just like,
Now, yesterday, please, right? I also want
exactly.
to say something to anybody else on that note. This is not like he comes in like a wrecking ball, right? We need to
Yeah,
talk about that. This is
yeah,
this is spiritual guidance, which is always timely. It's
yeah,
always of the highest essence of love, which is the most superpower of the universe. And it's
yeah,
always for the highest good of all concerned.
yeah.
So this is not about a message coming in that's going to make you have to harm somebody else or yourself, or
Oh,
you're going to have
no.
to do something that you don't want to do, right?
Hmm.
It's the most magical message, like we were talking about, where something just real small, just stop talking, or try this, or it's these special nuances that just help us shift perception. It's a gentle, airy, loving thing, not an
Yeah.
aggressive thing.
Yeah, and just a small example to speak to, and thank you for bringing those clarifications. Because yeah, it's all to me, universal intelligence is love, and part of love
Always.
is empowerment. It's really seeing how much impact and influence we have in our own lives through thinking, beliefs, decision, choices, all those things. So it's based in love, and to me, part of love is just realizing how much power we have in our lives. So it just takes us in through love. It takes us into that more of that seeing our lives in a powerful way. But a small example, like there's these things, like there's these paradigms of people. Sometimes people feel like you can get life wrong or right. And
Yeah.
this is just a small example of what I've sometimes seen in channeling. People are coming at it like, am I getting my life right or wrong? And the channel response will be like, what if it's none of that? What if life is all about the quality of how you feel in this moment? Like how you feel in your
Yeah.
body, in your life. What if that's the measurement of your life? How good you feel in any moment. And all of a sudden they're like, it's not about getting it right or wrong. It's just like, it's about how you feel in this moment. And if you're enjoying the way you feel, what if that's the gauge of your life? And all of a sudden there's like, I've never thought
Yes.
about it like that.
That's exactly right. So that's what I wanted to help clarify for people that might be interested in working with you, is that
Yeah.
there's a lot of times people, just as a coach myself, people
Yeah.
sometimes are afraid of admitting things to themselves because it might mean what they have to do. Like, let's say
Yeah.
they're admitting they have a verbally aggressive spouse. They don't want to say that part because they're afraid that I'm going to tell them that they have to leave the person. I don't tell people anything. I'm not an
Yeah.
advisor. I help people unwrap for themselves what
Yeah.
this means for the journey for themselves. Yeah. So, you know, this honesty with self doesn't mean you have to go do something you want to do. It's just gaining more information, it's gaining more clarity. It's in that clarity that
Yeah.
helps us make the next best decision for ourselves. So
Yeah.
thank you, Timothy, for having me. Mwah. So much love, brother. Thank you for having me here. This was really fun. An hour and
Yes.
a half went
Absolutely.
by like that.
Yes. Absolute pleasure. Thank you for being here. And again, if you want to find out more about Kristen's sessions or working with Kristen, again, you can find her information in the description. So yes, thank you so much. It's a pleasure as always. And I'm sure we'll do it again sometime
Yes,
soon.
definitely. Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Well, thank you everyone for watching this live episode of the Restore Yourself podcast. There will be a replay. So if you enjoy it, just know that you can always get the link, copy it, share it, and feel free to leave a comment if you found value in this. So thanks again for watching. Many more episodes on my channel and Kristen's channel, which again is tagged in the description. So thank you. Love you all. Until next time, many blessings always.